Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm Courtney.
And I'm MK.
And how are you?
Listen, I I was so ready to come in here and talk to you about all of the theater I've seen this week. Because I did see two shows. Both of them were high school shows, but they were both actually pretty decent. Um, the high school that I teach at did The Outsiders for their play, and it was pretty good. Um, Dan's high school just did The Mousetrap, the Agatha Christie play, and it was actually honestly the best high school performance I've ever seen. Like I was so impressed. And I was like, personally, I probably think it's because I know those kids. I've worked with them before because like it's the same kids who have been doing all the shows with Dan, and like I know all their kids' names and like I love those kids. And there was 8 kids in the show, whereas like my school show was like full show. But also it does make sense that like Joe's like it's a private school with like a competitive theater program, so like it does make sense that they're like just a little bit better. But they were both really great. But then as Courtney and I were preparing ourselves to record, I got a notification on my phone. And my whole life has changed from that notification. And Courtney knows what the notification is for already.
That's why I keep laughing.
And that's why her face looks like that. I just got a notification that Megan Fox announced that she's pregnant. And here's the thing. Megan Fox is 38 years old, and so people are already like, oh my God, that's so old to have a baby. It's her 4th child. But it's her
fourth child?
Yeah, the first 3 are with Brian Austin Green, though.
I think I thought she had one.
No, yeah, she has 3 children with Brian Austin Green, which is super weird because Brian Austin Green is now dating Sharna from Dancing with the Stars. So
really?
Like, yeah.
Wasn't he just on? No, he was just on The Masked Singer. I was like, he was just on Dancing with the Stars, but he wasn't.
He was on Dancing with the Stars a couple years ago. He was on Dancing with the Stars a couple seasons ago with her. Yeah, but so they're together. They were together before they were on the show together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not like one of those ones where everybody then like leaves Dancing with the Stars dating.
It's not a Brangelina situation,
right? Well, everybody leaves Dancing with the Stars somehow dating the person that they were dancing with because people are like, "Oh, we felt all this chemistry and passion." Well, yeah, because you're dancing together every night, and then you stop dancing together and you realize it wasn't real; it was just dancing. Because I can tell you from experience. I was in an acting class once, and it was a class where you did one scene and you worked on this one scene for the whole semester. And like you did layers and pieces to it and everything, but you worked on this one scene. So your acting partner for the semester was the same person for the whole semester. And I was in a scene with my friend Drew. And we were playing these characters. It's a play called The Heidi Chronicles, and I was playing the main character of the play, but it's at her ex's wedding. And like she's now friends with her ex and she goes to the wedding, but like they still are absolutely in love with each other.
Sure. Yeah, as is every story that's ever been told.
Right. And so Drew and I did the scene together. And let me tell you, we did terribly in the class. We did terribly in the class. The biggest problem was the physical aspect of like making out on stage and being in love with each other was the only part of the show of the scene that we acted well. And then
because it wasn't acting,
but then he got mono, so then we couldn't do that part, so we had to actually like just act, and we did not do well. But the thing was, for that whole semester there was a part of us that was like unreasonably attached to each other. Like we were both like dating other people, we were both like it's like we didn't actually have feelings for each other, but like I was watching like the main stage show and his character was crying and then I was crying and everyone was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Do you know how hard it was to watch Drew get his heart broken?" And they were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No, because I have spent every single day for the last 6 weeks pretending to be in love with him. And now a part of me is in love with him."
Right.
However, we were both professional enough to know that that wasn't real.
Right.
No one on Dancing with the Stars has ever gotten that memo. Anyway,
it's Dancing with the Stars for you,
right? But anyway, so Megan Fox is pregnant at 38 years old with her 4th child. However, as probably everyone in the world knows, her now partner slash fiance slash baby daddy.
I don't even know their relationship status half the time. They're engaged though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is Machine Gun Kelly.
MGK.
And I immediately got so jealous of this girl when I read this post. I was like, are you kidding me? Dan, I'm sorry if you ever listen to this podcast. I have never been so upset in my life about someone being pregnant.
Dan knows. I don't know if you know Dan knows, but he knows your obsession with both Machine Gun Kelly and the lead from Tokyo Hotel, which are very similar vibes.
Very similar vibes. Except for that Machine Gun
Kelly. Except one's gay.
Yeah. It was like, except Machine Gun Kelly is actually straight. So like it's a totally different. It feels
which also you haven't met him.
Whereas I've met the other guy more than once.
Exactly. Right.
So, I have problems.
There's levels there.
There's levels. But also it's weird because Machine Gun Kelly and Bill Kaulitz both kind of give me like Howl vibes, like from Howl's Moving Castle.
I watched that movie one time because it's my sister's favorite anime.
Yeah, it's my favorite
anime. I need to give it a fair shot.
Also, fun fact, one of the characters that Rhysand from A Court of Thorns and Roses is based off of is Howl, and like I just continue to realize.
I did read that.
Yeah, I just continue to fall down the spiral where I realize I only have one type of man in my everything that I've ever felt about anyone. It's about the same type of man, and Dan is not that man.
Right. And then there's Dan. Bless his heart.
And I love him so much. And I would never trade him for anything. But also, I'm not sure how this happened.
But you might would trade him for Rhysand.
Well, yeah. And he knows that.
Who's the other one? Isn't there two guys?
Huh? What? In that? Oh, Tamlin?
Is that the one I love? I don't remember which one
You've only read the first book too, though, right?
Right.
So you probably love Tamlin because everybody loves Tamlin at the end of the first book.
I need to give it another go.
Yeah.
Fall in love again.
Yeah, read it, the first book, but also read the second book before we have a conversation because there's this whole thing online about when your friends read the first book for the first time and you have to like just smile and nod when they tell you how much they love Tamlin because it's a wild journey.
2 books to read this week. I don't know if I'm going to make it through another 2. No. I finally downloaded my book club book instead of just pretending like I was going to read it and showing up to the meeting. So I do actually should probably read that one since it's available.
Yeah.
Also YA fantasy though, so.
My book club is just the girls that I work with and we talk every single day about where we are in our books. So it's okay.
That used to be me and Nora when I worked at the office.
So,
yeah.
But the book that I just finished this weekend, Chrissy hasn't read yet. Only Kate has read. So I had to text Kate. I had to text Kate separately from the rest of the group chat because Chrissy hasn't finished it yet. And Kate was like, "My favorite thing is how fast you read books." Because I was like, yeah.
See, that's how I am. I'm like, if I'm gonna read a book, I'm gonna read 17 books in a week.
Yeah.
Or I will get back to you in 6 years. Yeah. Like those are your options with
me. It took me 4 years to read Game of Thrones book 5.
Right.
And then in the last 7 weeks, I've read 5 Sarah J. Maas books.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So
ADHD, I think.
Now. So other than like, since I'm absolutely fucking spiraling, how are you?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. We literally, I was like, yeah, this episode comes out on Thanksgiving. Let's go. And then I just panicked that MGK's having a baby with Nami.
Well, I told myself, I said, is this Thanksgiving? So I know how to start this episode. And then I just didn't. So that was the last thing we talked about before we pushed record. It's fine. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Be thankful. I'm thankful for you.
I'm thankful for you.
I'm thankful for martinis. Different things, but I like you both a lot.
I'm thankful for you and for Romantasy smut.
Oh, there you go. All the good things in the world. Tomorrow is also my birthday, which is not in the timeline with the calendar. So 2 weeks ago, I turned 32. When you're hearing this. And so I'm pre-gaming with my second martini. And if you listen to last week's episode,
you said you were only going to have one.
I was only gonna have one. And I also have just been eating like very piecemeal today. Like while we were starting this episode, I ate some broccoli and mushrooms. So like things are well. But yeah, so tomorrow's my birthday and 32 hits different, but in a good way, I guess. Like it's the first birthday in like 4 years where I haven't been as chaotic as I could be. Like I am a little more stable. I'm around like friends and family and like I mean, I've been in New York for the past 6 years, so
Yeah.
this is my first time to like kind of be back home for my birthday, and it's weird, but I'm into it.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm trying to remember 32. I didn't
you're 32.
no, I'm trying to remember what my 32nd birthday was like. I think it just was.
You were
Like
stressed because you didn't have a job yet, and you thought you were and your school was closing.
yeah.
You were not well
I was
for your
not well.
32nd birthday.
No, I was not well. You're right. I didn't know anything. Because I was like my 30th birthday, I made like a big fucking deal about it. And then
Yeah, sure.
my 31st birthday, I didn't make a big deal of it, but it was the first birthday that Dan and I were together, so he made a big
Mm,
deal about it. And then 32, I don't think I
disassociated.
gave a shit. Like I was like, I don't think
Yeah.
I cared.
See, my 30th was my big year. That was the year I say me and my mom went to San Francisco. I took my mom to San Francisco because that's when I
Yes.
had money in
Money.
my life.
Yeah.
Never again. Um, but I did that. And then last year we did Philly for our birthdays, but like my actual birthday, I was working and samesies. I think I went and saw a show or something. But this year it's gonna be nice. I'm a little more stable as a person. I know it doesn't sound like it, but I am a little more stable as a person. And Rachel's planned out this like big birthday for me tomorrow, and we're gonna do like dinner and something else that I haven't been told about yet. So I'll recap next week. But we're also gonna do like a game night this weekend with friends, and
I'm
it's
wearing
just
my
gonna be like
I'm wearing my striped sweater that I wore when I saw Beetlejuice, just in case
I
that's what
love
you're
it,
doing.
just in case,
Yeah.
just in case. Yeah, so it's like I don't know. It's as weird as things are right now and is up in the air and like trying to, figure out an apartment and trying to figure out a job and study for the bar and everything. It's like it's still kind of like nice to be
Yeah.
home to turn
Yeah.
32, which is a not an important age, but it feels a
No.
little more important, I
I think
guess,
I
this
think
year.
I think 33 is gonna be the big one for me because it'll be my first birthday, like
Your first married year.
married. Yeah. Well, and Dan's
Mhm.
birthday is like 2 weeks or 3 weeks after our wedding, and he's
Right.
turning 35. So like I feel very pressured to make it a big deal. But he is such a I don't like a big deal being made about me kind of person that I don't know how to like make him feel special, but also like not overwhelm him.
Yeah. I think you'll nail it. Um, yeah, I don't know what 33 has to hold for me, but I just gotta make through 32 first. But yeah, so tomorrow's my birthday and I'm stoked about it. For those of you who know me, I love my birthday. It's a big time for me. Um, so I'm excited and I think it's gonna be good. And then when you're hearing this, I will be back home with family. So it's a nice little time. Are you doing anything for Thanksgiving?
Right now I'm trying to figure out how many of the 4 or 5 Thanksgivings I'm supposed to
Hmm.
go to I am going to be able to go to. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, this weekend I think I'm gonna start making our list. Never fails. Doesn't matter if I'm coming from New York. Doesn't matter if I have 2 days off or none.
Yeah.
I plan our meal. And so I think this weekend I'm gonna start thinking that over
Yeah.
because then I'll go
No.
to my mom's and make everything.
Yeah, no. Dan's mom's Thanksgiving is on Friday, which is nice, but I think it's because his dad's doing Thanksgiving on Thursday, but my family's obviously doing Thanksgiving on Thursday, so I have to figure
Yeah.
out how I'm doing that. Um,
Good luck.
Thanks.
One of the perks of not being married.
Yeah, no,
Just go
next
for a time. And all of my grandparents being in nursing homes. Yeah, I have one family. So
yeah, no, next year, we're gonna be married and have a house, and I think I'm just gonna say either
host.
come to my house or don't see me because I'm not doing
I like it. Maybe I'll
it.
come to your house next year.
Perfect. That'll be great.
This is also my first Thanksgiving home in since COVID.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Because
Yeah. Because you
COVID, I
were.
was in New York, and then the year after Rachel came up, and then the next 2 years, I was just like, I'm working too much that it doesn't make sense to go home. Like I don't have the
But
money to go home.
didn't you go to Nora's for Thanksgiving though? Or Noel's for Thanksgiving?
I went to Noel's for Easter.
Okay.
I did. I was supposed to go to, I thought about going to Caitlin's last year, and then I was really depressed and didn't. So I went to the parade only.
No.
But yeah, so no, I haven't been home for Thanksgiving in 4 years. So this was my first time home for a while.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I hope you all have a happy Thanksgiving, and we're thankful for you that listen to us. And
Yes.
I hope this is great for you. And this is a wild episode to have for Thanksgiving. So
It sure
before we
is.
break into it, do you want to give
Yeah.
us a little bit of a motivation that is not gonna what is it? Target us? What did we say?
Yeah. I think this is the quote that we're at. But it feels a little more positive than the last one I read, so I'm thinking, yeah. As surgeons, there are many things we have to know. We have to know what it takes. We have to know how to take care of our patients and how to take care of each other. Eventually, we even have to figure out how to take care of ourselves. As surgeons, we have to be in the know. But as human beings, sometimes it's better to stay in the dark. Because in the dark, there may be fear, but there's also hope.
That's very true. That is the way to be.
Yeah.
That's the way I'm living my life. I don't have a lot of answers, but as long as you don't have bad answers, there's a hope for a good answer.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
yeah. All right. Well, this week there's not a lot of hope, unfortunately.
No, unfortunately, no.
But it's okay because we're talking about Hannibal, season 3, episode 2,
Yeah.
Primavera, which is a dish associated with spring for Italy, but also is a painting that is referenced in this episode, amongst other things.
Yes.
So they mostly stuck with the same theme of having food courses.
Yeah.
It aired June 11th of 2015, and it was rated 7.9 out of 10.
Okay.
How do you feel about that?
Is that higher than last week?
Yes, last week was 7.2.
Okay. Yeah,
I
but
thought it was a little low.
I think it's a little low, but I agree that this season's a little weaker than the first two seasons so far, but that this episode was better than last week. So I'm okay with that rating.
The number one song was Bad Blood with T Swifty and Kendrick Lamar.
Of course.
Theory. So Kendrick Lamar is playing the Super Bowl. Obs. That's already been announced. So the Chiefs are also probably going to make it to the Super Bowl.
No, the fuck they're not. Because for them to make it to the Super Bowl, it means the Bills aren't making it to the Super Bowl. And I don't think you understand how fucking pumped I am for next week when we have a home game against the Chiefs and we have won 6 in a row and we're going to take their fucking undefeated streak away from them. And
Okay. So let's go in this fantasy world that's not the same as yours. If the Chiefs make it to the Super Bowl, what are the odds that Kendrick brings Taylor Swift out to sing Bad Blood?
I mean, I think Kendrick could bring Taylor Swift out to sing Bad Blood no matter what. I don't think that's really an issue.
But she's not going to the Super Bowl if the Chiefs aren't there.
Why not? Do you know how much she'll fucking get paid to sing at the Super Bowl?
Nothing. They don't pay people to sing at the Super Bowl.
I don't think that's true.
That is true. I represented them people that did it. They get paid like $500. It's like nothing. The only thing they get from playing the Super Bowl is sponsorships afterward. That's what comes from the Super Bowl.
That feels unreasonable.
It is unreasonable. That's what I've been saying for years, and it's gotten worse since Apple took over. Pepsi paid a little bit more. Because we had California Love was one of our songs. That's how I know. Because when we did it a couple years ago, that was the first I'd ever heard of it. Wild. Bonkers.
Yeah. I don't know, though. Like, if that's true for everything. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that just doesn't feel...
Well, it is for the performers. It's the sponsorships they get. And the sponsors will pay more. But like the Super Bowl, the NFL does not pay them anything to come to the Super Bowl, basically.
Yeah, oh, no, I wasn't saying the NFL was paying them. Yeah. But no matter where the money comes from, the money comes in.
Yeah, they'll get sponsorships after. But if it's Kendrick's Super Bowl, I don't know that Taylor Swift is going to get the same.
Yeah, but
she's also got the offers already.
Yeah, but here's the thing. the Super Bowl ads for Kendrick's performance have already started. The money coming in from the ads to say that he's playing at the Super Bowl have already started. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's a different thing though. That's different than the halftime show. Like Taylor doesn't have any ads right now.
Right. No, but she doesn't need
I
them.
think hers is going to be a surprise though. Like I don't think it's going to be announced that she's going to come out. I think she would come out as like a surprise guest.
I think that for the publicity and her relationship with the NFL right now anyway, I think Travis or no Travis, she'll do it if Kendrick asks her to.
I mean, if Kendrick asks anyone to do anything right now, he is the king of hip hop right now. You got to do it.
Well, here's the thing though. Oh my God. I forgot the thing that I was going to tell you in the break and I didn't tell you. But it's just because I was having this conversation with someone the other day. Last year's Super Bowl, last year was Usher, right?
Mm-hmm.
I lost my mind. I was so excited. We were so excited. We were so hyped. But the problem is then the Diddy list came out.
No.
And all of the things about Usher's involvement in Justin Bieber's relationship with Diddy, I
mean, as soon as it came out that there was a Justin Bieber issue with Diddy, you had to know Usher.
Oh, no, of course.
I mean,
of course. But then like I've been like I mean, to be fair, I've also been like spiraling deep down and like listening to the words of Justin Bieber's Lonely on like and then like watching the hyper analysis of the Tasty video and like what that was actually trying to tell people that we didn't see and like
so you're just a little wary of
I'm just like no I'm like super wary of anybody being at that hype level because like what are we ignoring because of the hype?
Well, and I think that's one thing is I think
but the other thing is
that a lot of that would have come out.
Kendrick has been very, very vocally against the shit that has gone down. And
because of what happened with Drake.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But and that's the thing is like I'm like trying to like support Kendrick because of that, but I'm also like, but then what if I do and then you turn out to be just as bad as the rest of them and I'm scarred.
Oh, yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
Because everyone is awful. And I've already even spiraled on this podcast about people that I love, like Machine Gun Kelly, but also he is awful too. Like, I'm not pretending that that's not true. Like, everyone is awful.
Everyone is awful. Yeah. Yeah. There's no evidence against Kendrick yet.
No. There's nothing. And honestly, based on what has been said and what is going down with the Kendrick Drake feud, I really don't think Kendrick is on that side of things.
Yeah, I really think he's probably okay, but again, you never know.
Yeah.
So fair.
Yeah. But sorry, all of that was to say that
that was our number one song. We are starting strong. It is the number one movie, Jurassic World. I just realized the other day, I don't think I've seen the third one yet. I think I've only seen the first two. I haven't
seen the third one yet either. I just realized. But also, Catherine Schwarzenegger and Chris Pratt are having a baby too. Again, they're having their third baby.
What a world!
Everyone's pregnant right now.
They have three. I thought they were about to have two.
No, they're about to have their third.
Oh God, I'm so.
Everyone's pregnant, which would be Chris's fourth because he and Anna have one.
Right.
Yeah. Everybody's pregnant right now with their fourth child.
What a time! What a time!
Except for me.
Same. Thank God. Our number one book is Radiant Angel by Nelson DeMille. I do not know this person. No. I do not know this book.
Correct.
I wish them the best.
Yep.
So on this day was the day that I'm gonna say that one. Sorry. This is when Jack Dorsey took over as interim CEO of Twitter.
Oh,
if you recall that. Yeah. And there wasn't a ton of stuff. So I also pulled from 1509. This was the day that Henry VIII wed Catherine of Aragon.
Great. Do you know what did happen on June 11th, 2015 that I don't know if you have written down?
What?
That is the day Sir Christopher Lee died.
Oh, I didn't have that written down.
Well, and I only know that because I just pulled up my Facebook to see what I posted on June 11th, and it was all just things about Christopher Lee dying. So.
Yeah, that tracks. No, the last thing I have written down is that this is the day that Spain gave Miguel de Cervantes a formal burial, which was over 400 years after he died. He died in it was I think he died in 1660.
Yeah.
right after
yeah,
New
it was
Year's.
the 1600s for sure.
Yeah. And
I
this
thought
was their
you were
formal
like
burial thing.
Spain gave Miguel de Cervantes, and I was like, oh, an award, a special
Award,
holiday.
yeah.
And then you were
A
like,
little
a
honor.
burial. I was like,
A burial.
Rewind.
That was my favorite thing. I found that and I was like, nothing else is going to touch this. But it was the first thing I saw. So I was like, I have to find something else.
Yes, no, that is the day Sir Christopher Lee died also.
Yeah.
And my ex's mom posted a video on my Facebook telling me to cuddle with a pig when I felt stressed. We had already broken up at this point.
So good advice, though.
But she was like, this reminds me of you. I was like, it's cute. She's cute.
It's cute.
She still comments on all my stuff.
Oh, that's nice of her.
Yeah. We broke up.
I take back my mean comment.
We broke up a decade ago.
Well, it happens.
Yeah.
So our director this episode is Vincenzo Natali, who we've spoken about before. Writers Jeff Laming, editors Michael Dougherty. Nothing new. Our guest star is Fortunato Serlino. He plays Inspector Ronaldo Pazzi. He is known for Inferno, Gomorrah, and Gomorrah the series, which was brought out by HBO Max. And that is all. There is no information about this man. I looked up social media. He may have a social media account that has 2 pictures on it. He's not in them though, so who's to say? Because I did these notes, last night, like a normal person since I worked today. And I searched for this man, and there's just like nothing on him. Yeah. So
well,
good for him and his existence. He's been in a ton of Italian movies and TV shows, but nothing I'd heard of. So
great.
I just kind of left it at that. So now, after 73 years, we are going to start season 3, episode 2. And we start with a flashback. And we are flashbacking to the final night with Will. And we have the scene with Will and Abigail being cut and stabbed and bleeding out. Like all of it. We see the exact same 6 minutes.
Yeah,
that we saw. It was like 6:15 when it ended. Yeah,
it was so long, and at one point, I had to answer a phone call, so I paused it, and I was 32 minutes into the episode, and I go, but nothing. What? Because the first literally quarter of the episode wasn't new information.
Yeah.
So
it was right over 6 minutes long. But we see the entire scene frame for frame that we saw before. But then we get into a little bit of new stuff during the same final scene where we have the blood flowing out from the deer, which we did see, but then we see it grow. Yeah. And it grows into covering Abigail and covering Will, and it's like this whole thing, and it brings you back to a lot of the same visuals we saw last season, where people were drowning in the blood and the dark water.
Yeah.
We see the teacup shattering, and then Will wakes up, and he is in a hospital.
Okay, can I tell you, how I wasn't sure what was going to happen with Will this season? Yeah. I got spoiled. And not in a way. No, here's the thing. And not in a way that is even fair. Because do you know how I got spoiled? I got spoiled by one of the goddamn astrology accounts I follow on Instagram posting an astrology meme with Will and Hannibal walking in the streets of Italy.
When was this? How long have you known?
This was Friday.
Oh, okay. So it's new. It's not
right. But I was like, it was sometime last week that I was like, but well, that's rude.
I got spoiled. I knew at the end of last season what was going to happen. I knew that he was coming back.
I also got spoiled on something because I stupidly clicked on a Collider article about Hannibal that was telling me the 10 best Hannibal actors, and it had Reba from the movies, but it was not the actor from either of the movies.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that also happened last week. And I was like, I'm off the internet. I'm done. I'm only clicking
on things. I knew that was coming too.
I was like, I'm only clicking on things by Akatar. I'm not watching anything else on the internet ever again.
So I also knew about that from when I was doing research on the movies. So Yeah, those are things
I do know that story is going to come up, and I did know that Will was alive.
Yeah. But that was recent. You just found out
both of those things, I just found out within the last
Okay.
week. And I still don't know any of the plot except for that the Red Dragon plot will be somewhere in the season. That's
Sure.
But that kind of also checks out.
Yeah.
So like not surprising.
Yeah, all of those were ruined for like a month ago. So
No, those have only been ruined for me for 3 days.
Yeah.
But I'm so mad because it wasn't even like a legitimate thing. It was literally just a picture of the two of them hold like arm in arm walking down the street in Italy. And I was like, you bitches. Fuck you, astrology.
So Will wakes up. So he is alive still.
Although,
which
never mind. I'm gonna keep my other thought I was gonna say to the end of the episode.
Till the end. Yeah. He also I also, had I not been spoiled before I watched last week's, I accidentally saw the beginning, like saw the caption of this week's while I was looking at last week's, and it's like Will wakes up in the hospital, and I was like, that is what a spoiler in the first line of the Amazon caption.
Yeah. I try not to read what Amazon says because they don't
I do too.
Amazon has very spoilerific captions.
Yeah. I usually try really hard not to see them, and I'm much more careful on like Stargate than I am on like Hannibal.
Yeah.
But still, I was like, that is what a giveaway. So next he wakes up and the doctor walks in the room and says, someone else would like to see you, has been dying to see you. And Abigail walks in. And when I tell you, that is not a thing I was expecting.
I was 100% convinced that he was dreaming this moment. And then about halfway through the episode, I was like, I was wrong. And then by the end of the episode, I was like, wait, what the fuck is happening?
So I fully expected that to be either Bloom or Hannibal walking in. Those were my two guesses when they said somebody's coming to see you.
I, for a second, thought it was going to be Bloom, but then I was like, but Shay's really dead.
She's dead.
She's like dead. And then it was a girl. And I was like, wait, what? And then it like unblurred and it was Abigail. And I was like, did I just get everything about this entire show wrong?
I know. But that's also when we get the credits. So if you needed time to ruminate, you got some time to ruminate.
Yeah.
So then we come back and we learn that the surgeons told Abigail that he cut them in exactly the spots where they wouldn't die, but they would be so close to death that they like couldn't do anything about it basically at this point, but that they would survive. And
which is so horrific, honestly.
And so Hannibal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that moment I was like, yeah, this is believable. No questions. No
question. Never less questions.
Right. But also Abigail is like hella mad at Will that he was lying to Hannibal. So we get confirmation, kind of, that he was lying the whole time. Even though I'm not totally sold on that idea, because he did say the first thing he said to Hannibal was, why didn't you leave? So I'm not totally sold on the idea that he like was explicitly lying to him the whole time.
I am.
You are?
Yes. But it's because of what we know by the end of this episode.
Okay. We'll circle back.
Yeah.
So so they're talking and they're chatting, and he's talking about, he was like, that was the end for us. This is the end. They talk about endings or whatever. And she's like, we don't have an ending yet because he didn't give us one, which is, again, the most Hannibal thing and the most like, yeah, for sure. For sure. Like, at this point, once he's like taking you in, he chooses how you live or die. Which is why I'm very excited to see how this season unfolds, even if the first like couple episodes are a little rough.
Yeah.
And then Abigail says that she still wants to find him. He's like, after all of this, you still want to find Hannibal? And she's like, yeah, totes. Like, definitely want to do that. And then we go to Will's dreaming. And he's dreaming of the knife, like, that he was stabbed with cutting through his abdomen.
Mm-hmm.
And then he kind of wakes up in Hannibal's office. And as he gets up, he's like standing up into like fully dressed, and you see like the shoes and everything. It's like, it's a nice visual.
Yeah.
And then you see the papers flying around that are like emulating kind of how they were when Hannibal's burning everything.
Yeah.
He catches the paper with the clock on it and it catches on fire. And then we're in Hannibal's mind palace, but Will's version of Hannibal's mind palace. So he sees the two of them, like he sees himself talking to Hannibal in this office.
I didn't think that was a mind palace. I think that's a memory, because it's the exact conversation that he and Will had when they were burning things about what his mind palace was like.
Well, he said, "This is your mind palace."
No,
like at one point,
he said this because Hannibal says that this place will never disappear from him, and he said you'll save it in your mind palace. Yeah, no, it was again the exact same scene.
It was the exact
scene. It was the conversation between them was the exact same scene as when they talked about Hannibal's mind palace last season. And it was Will remembering his description of the mind palace and knowing where to find him.
Did they? This could be. I have a terrible memory. Did they discuss the skull before? I don't remember them discussing that in the last scene.
No, they discussed the church itself, but this is like more detail that we then didn't.
Okay, yes. So it evolved, and we didn't. We saw the end of that scene.
Yeah, it was like
before.
It was like we saw all of this scene plus this chunk.
Yeah,
yeah,
because that's where we saw them talk about the skull, and he looks up at the ceiling, and that's what he needs to know to move forward.
Yes.
And then we see a flash from at the hospital when he wakes up from this memory / dream of himself saying this conversation. And then it's 8 months later. And we're in Italy.
Yep.
And Will and Abigail have arrived at the chapel that they spoke about.
Mm-hmm.
And they are talking about suffering and elegance. And Will talks about how God sees like elegance is more important than suffering. Like he's more worried about people being elegant than about the people who are suffering. And he
I love
comparing.
That. Well, I love that he said that about God, and Abigail says, "Are you describing God or Hannibal?"
Yeah, and he's like, Hannibal's not a god. He's like what did he say? I wrote it down. He loves defying God, and so he loves being able to take these like elements and flip them on their head. But he's not actually a god.
Yeah.
And then they have this full discussion that kind of goes back and forth on this like element. And then he starts seeing the roof crumble. And at this moment,
the craziest thing was he described Hannibal wanting to like have the roof crumble at his fingertips or like something weird like that. And then the roof actually starts to crumble. And it's like, that's fucking creepy.
Yeah. And then he starts seeing the blood drops come down. And that's when we see the skull for the first time in the church. And so he's looking at that. And then when we kind of flash back up, we realize that we're back to the scene of the like torso from the guy that Hannibal killed, that moron guy, and put in the church.
Yes.
So we've now come full circle and gotten back to where we left off last episode.
Yeah.
And now the church has turned into a crime scene. So Chief Palazzi, who is our guest star this week, turns out he read about Will's lockup and about his experience with Hannibal. And so he wanted to talk to him. And let me tell you, talking about last time when we were like, we don't know enough Italian to like really know this. When he says, I want to talk to him, that is literally the only thing I understood Italian. And that's the only thing they translated. And I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. That was,
I was like, I got that
he was like, what did he say? He was like, oh, he said he wanted to talk to you. I was like, but I knew that.
I was like, that was the easy one. Yeah. So
to be fair, there was a lot less untranslated Italian in this episode than there was last week.
Absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, so they're talking about this, and then we go over to the police station.
Actually, I think the only other moment that I really didn't know what was going on was when the chief was like praying, like, or like talking to.
Well, they had something in the catacombs. I don't know if those are catacombs or not. I don't know what they call them in Italian churches.
But he was
that's what I kept referring to.
He was saying something, but I think it was supposed to be a prayer. Like, I don't think it was supposed to be.
Yeah. Like, we don't necessarily need to know what it is. We just need to know it's a prayer. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're right. There really wasn't a lot untranslated.
Yeah.
So they're talking to the police station, and he starts telling him, he's like, so are you here? Like, first of all, why did you come here? Are you here because of the body, or is the body here because of you? And obviously we know it's a little bit of both because Hannibal loves a calling card, and we'll just continue until it reaches its person. And we also learn in this moment that the chief actually met Hannibal 20 years ago when he was Il Mostro, which is he was the monster of Florence. And he's been basically chasing him ever since. And you can, there's this sense of, oh, it's the same person. No, he shows us a picture. It is absolutely Hannibal from 20 years ago. So that's good. And then we get the flashback. And we see the chief watching, this is before he was the chief, but watching Hannibal. He's watching him like day after day because he keeps going to the same painting, which is the Primavera, and he keeps recreating it. And he's hand drawing it with just a pencil, and like every day. And then we see the murder that he does in like the truck bed or whatever. I don't know what people bed, but and it's the recreating of the Primavera, but with the bodies. And we also learned that there was another man that was convicted of these crimes, and there was no evidence against him. The problem was there was no evidence against anyone else, and so he was still the one that was found. But the chief never believed because he knows Hannibal. And so he's still been chasing him down. And so Will's talking about, he's like, yeah, he really has a way of like passing around blame and not like getting it on him. And he's like, yeah, blame has a way of sticking to you because he's hella familiar with Will's background. And whatnot. And so then we have kind of a rewind. He doesn't do the full rewind, and it's post-crime, so it's a little bit different than what we've seen in the past with Will. But he's looking at the bloody torso, and he starts kind of describing its elements, and he describes how it's trimmed like a topiary. And he says that it's a Valentine written for in a broken man. Which comes back. But he also starts seeing this body, and it starts folding out of itself and growing, and it grows into this, what I've called as a deer from hell. Because it is not well.
No.
And he's watching this, and then Abigail brings him back to the present because he's like shaking and like not doing well, and she kind of calls him back and brings him back out of his own head. And he starts saying like he feels closer to Hannibal here, and he starts laughing a little maniacally. It's a little unsettling. Which is really, I'm very interested to see Hugh Dancy evolve into this like new version of Will. I think it's gonna be fun and terrifying, but also fun. And so Will starts talking about how like Hannibal's playing with them, and he's like, it basically, I was saying earlier about the like calling card, he like put himself out there. He's like making sure that they know where he is, but he's also like always watching. He always knows what's going on. And then they start talking about like what would have happened had Will followed through with the plan. Like, what if Will had agreed to just go with Hannibal? The three of them would have gone off and made their own life. And they start talking about all these different places. Then Abigail's neck starts bleeding. And this is the moment we learn she's not actually there. The first indication that I really believed, like I really started noticing something was wrong, was when he didn't really address her at the police station.
Well, when they were talking, when the police officer was going to talk to him, and she was like waiting at the bottom of the stairs, and he didn't like see her.
He didn't even like make eye contact. He like kind of noticed her, but then didn't acknowledge her at all.
Or like when he said that he needed to talk to Will, but like never wanted to talk to her or address that she was with Will. That's when I was like, this feels strange.
Yeah, that was the moment I was like, something's weird. Something is wrong here, and I don't know what it is.
But this is what I was.
That was most, I don't know that Abigail's real. And so
this is what I was gonna say. Despite my predictions for this season being wrong, it was kind of right in a way where Will is not a ghost that's haunting Hannibal, but Abigail is the ghost that's now haunting Will. Like
Right.
it's everything that I said Will was going to be this season. Abigail is for Will.
Yeah. At least for now. We don't
At
know.
least for
Maybe
now.
she'll stay
But
through the
then again,
season, maybe not. But
she wasn't back in the episode again at all after that moment.
right. So I don't know if that was like our wake up call along with his. And so like because
Right.
also the way that it progresses, we go so we have the flashback of the night, which reveals everything. And Abigail is super dead. When he's like kind of coming back to his like senses, he sees her eyes are wide open, she's bled out, she's on the floor, it's over.
Yeah.
Like while they're kind of taking him away.
Yeah.
And we get a flip-flop scene of him being in the hospital and her being in the morgue. And
Well,
then
and yeah, and the hospital and the morgue, and you can tell, like, even if you couldn't tell that it was a morgue versus a hospital, you can tell the moment that I was like, for sure she's dead and he's not, was when it flipped from them checking her teeth to intubating him.
yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah,
oh.
because they did a lot of parallels by how they were doing it. And you could see like her eyes like grayed over too, in the morgue.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked the idea of those scenes. I don't know that they were as well portrayed as some of our other parallel scenes we've had, just
Yeah.
because the other ones have been so well done. But it did a good job of still telling you what it needed to tell you,
Yeah.
basically. And so now we're back to today and we're in the church. And
Wait,
Will's
hold
late.
on. I have one question about that scene. And I don't know, I didn't do any research because I didn't want to spoil anything.
Mhm.
When Abigail disappears, there's a flash to Hannibal being in the church watching Will sitting all by himself on the steps of the church. And then Hannibal
Oh,
walks
yeah, I wrote
away.
that down.
Oh, and then Hannibal walks away, and there's like a star in the design of the church, and it focuses behind the star on a saint's face on the wall. Do we know what saint that is?
We do not, because it's not in the trivia, and I sure forgot to look it up.
Okay. I might look it up right now and try to see if I can
Okay.
find anything that's only about this episode, because
Yeah.
I think it was just so pointedly focused on that.
It was.
And I wanted to know what.
And I'm
saint.
sure that does have a relation
Yeah.
to it.
Right.
And I did mean to look that up. I wrote it down and then did not look it up. But yeah, so we're back in the church today, and Will is laying on the floor when the chief comes back, and he starts asking if he's praying, because he's like, I don't really know what you're doing. You're laying flat on your back. Is this prayer maybe? Like, I don't know. But Will says that he's just thinking out loud because he's Will. And so he starts asking him, he's like, I think you're the answer to catching him. Like all this time, like you're inside his head. You're the first person who's seen him, which is how we left off, because he says, I let you see me. And so we go through this whole little thing, and Will starts telling him, he's like, you got to let him go. He's like, at this point, if you don't let him go, he's going to kill you. That's just how this whole thing goes. I've been watching it happen year after year. Like there's no way around it. And this is also when Will goes down in the catacombs, because he tells him, he's like, well, where is Hannibal? And Will's like, he never left. Like he's still here.
Yeah.
And so it goes down to the catacombs of Italy, or whatever they're called there. And he's looking for Hannibal, and he starts calling out to him, and he's trying to find him. And then we have flashbacks between him and the chief is also looking, and he ends up running into Will. And Will tells him that he shouldn't be there alone. And he's like, I'm not, I'm here with you. And Will just says, you don't know whose side I'm on, which is again the setup of where are we going? Is he too far gone that he's on Hannibal's side now?
Right.
Or is that just something he's saying because he wants the chief to protect himself, and he's in danger regardless of if he's friends, like regardless of what Will's side is. If the chief is with Will, Hannibal is going to likely kill him, like either way. So is he trying to get him away, or is he actually on Hannibal's side now? But one of the things that leads you one way is that Will looks hella deranged. Like this is the most we've seen Will kind of like look out of pocket. Like he does not look quite like himself. Did you find who the saint was?
Yes. And it's very fascinating. So the saint is Saint Ambrose. Saint Ambrose is the Bishop of Milan, and he's a very important saint in Italy, but also he was one of the very first biblical critics, and he was pretty much responsible for the medieval relationship between learning and the church. He was also a doctor, and he's the
I knew it had
patron.
something to do with medicine.
It was the patron saint of students and learning. So having his face be looking down on Will as Hannibal walks away is like very symbolic of like the teacher and the student relationship. And he is, because he was famous and became a doctor as a biblical critic, it has a lot to do with what they're talking about, whether Hannibal is praying or finding God or whatever. But also he is the patron saint of bees and beekeepers, which is completely unrelated to any of those things, but just very fun.
I mean, we had our beekeeper episode, so
yes.
Yeah, I knew as soon as you said Ambrose, I was like, that has something to do with medicine. And
Yes, yes, he's the doctor, like he's like the
Mhm.
patron saint of like doctors, or it was known as like the doctor of the church.
Yeah.
But also I did also look up the Italian, and it wasn't a prayer. He's asking Will, "Are you still here?"
Oh, yeah, no. That was in this scene right here, right?
Yes. Yeah. In this
Yeah.
scene, the Italian that he's
Because-
saying that's muffled, it's actually, "Are you still here? Are you still there?"
Yes, I did know this when he asked him if he's still there, because then he also follows up with, "You're already dead, aren't you?" That was his like follow-up to that statement.
Yes.
And so yeah, and as we're doing this, like we get a quick glimpse of Hannibal behind the like post or whatever. And then as we keep the camera panning, he disappears again. And we go back to Will, who says, "I forgive you." And that's the last we get, aside from these faint red horns that are coming below Will. But I don't know if they're actually supposed to be horns, but they look very horn-like a little bit devilly.
Yeah.
And that's how we end this episode. So I have some pointed questions before we get into like predictions. Where do you think? Oh, go ahead.
Can I explain now that we've gotten to the end why I think that it's confirmation that he was actually lying? Because Abigail doesn't exist and she's only in his mind. She is mad at him for lying to Hannibal. And so I think he was lying the entire time, but he's now in this moment coming to grips with what that meant and what he was willing to do to Hannibal, and now is struggling with where he is, on what side of the coin he's actually on, because he spent so long pretending to be on Hannibal's side that he doesn't know how to remove himself from that. But up until this, it was all a lie.
That is fair. So that leads into my question.
Yeah.
Where do you think Hannibal is? I mean, where do you think Will is right now?
I think he is guilty. I think at the end of the day, he will choose what is right. But because everyone else is dead and the only connection he has left in the world is Hannibal, and he blames his lying to Hannibal and everyone else dying because he tried to trick Hannibal, he's wrapped up in such a cocoon of guilt that in this moment, he will save Hannibal.
So you think that he will almost by default help Hannibal at this point? It's not like a choice anymore because he doesn't have anyone left, is what you're saying?
I think he doesn't have anyone left, and he feels so much guilt that when he says, "I forgive you," I don't know if he's talking to himself or to Hannibal.
Okay. That's good.
I think there's so much guilt there that by default in this moment, he's going to choose Hannibal. And I hope that by the end of the season, enough has gone wrong that he realizes that it's not him and Hannibal will always be this way, and goes back to the side of what's right. Like, that's my hope for his arc. But I think if you ask me what's going to happen episode 3, is he going to be team Hannibal or team get Hannibal to jail? He's going to pick Hannibal.
No, I think that's fair. I too have that hope for an arc, but my belief for an arc at this moment is that I think Will's going to spiral. And I understand that we're going to get like the Tooth Fairy element in this season, but I think we're going to get a twisted version of it. I don't think we're going to get the Will Graham
version of it.
I think Will's going to end up helping Hannibal. I think he's gonna grow closer, and because we have this like weird relationship that Brian Fuller can't help but underline all of his characters, um, between the two of them, that I think it's gonna end up
Well,
being.
and this is also something that's really weird. So last week, Hugh Dancy and Mads Mikkelsen were at a Comic-Con, a New York City Comic-Con, talking about this. And I
Mhm.
skimmed the interview. I did not read it, and I did not go through all of the questions because I did not want to spoil anything for it. But I skimmed it because most of it wasn't actually talking about the details of the show. It was talking about like,
Right.
is there going to be a season 4? Like,
Sure.
how did you
As it
guys
always
feel
is,
about your
yeah.
characters? Blah blah blah. And the interesting thing that I saw in this interview that I think informs a lot of how the show goes is they asked, have you ever met someone who is actually like Hannibal, who
Oh,
like
that's interesting. Yeah.
not in the cannibal or murder aspect
Right.
of it, but the way that Mads Mikkelsen's version of Hannibal is, the way that this person carries themselves
Hmm.
and plays God, like who do you think is the most like that? And Mass said without hesitation, Brian Fuller. Brian Fuller is Hannibal.
Wow.
And so much of the way the show was written is because Brian Fuller is Hannibal.
That's wild.
In all of the positive like aspects of Hannibal, some of the negative aspects, he is not murdering and
Sure.
eating people, but like in all of the positive
But he's
aspects of
still, I think he probably has some of the negative ones,
no,
obviously not
that's
the murder
yeah. Well,
stuff,
that's the thing. And he's like, and but so like some of those negative like playing God,
manipulation, the
manipulation,
power. Yeah.
power, and Mads Mikkelsen was like Brian Fuller, and he wasn't saying it as a like
In
judgment
a
because
negative.
because
Yeah.
obviously like they still want to work with the show. They loved working with Brian, but he
Hmm.
was like the show turned out as well as it did because Brian gets the character on a way no one else ever has.
That makes sense.
And so would it shock me if the show never quite gave Hannibal judgment? No.
Yeah. I think because I know we ended early, we ended with the idea that there could potentially be more seasons. I do think that this leaves us with Will being indebted to Hannibal and
Mhm.
not going against him by the in the end. That's kind of one of my predictions.
Yeah.
I think that that was probably set up for season 5, which we don't have obviously because he said he had planned out 7 seasons. I
Mhm.
think we have a turnaround into season 5, early season 6 is probably what he planned because we have those 2 seasons where Will knows so much and he's following so hard, but then we start seeing him falter. And this season I think is going to be his big falter season. I think next season is going to be would have been a struggle to come back up. And I think that it would have been a couple of seasons before we got
Yeah,
good will,
I
moral
don't
will back.
yeah, I don't think my dream for the arc
Hmm.
would be that something snaps and will, and at the end of the day, like final episode, he turns Hannibal in. But
Sure.
because I know this season wasn't supposed to be the end, and because I now have that insight that they both feel that Brian Fuller is connected to that character in a creepy, deep, we don't understand it way,
Yeah.
I do not believe that this season will end with Hannibal having justice
Yeah.
or judgment.
I agree. And I think going off of what you said, I don't know that we would have ever gotten Judgment of Hannibal. Like even if he got caught, even if we got the Silence of the Lambs story, even if we got Clarice, like I don't know that we would have ever gotten the judgment we see with Anthony Hopkins, that we saw with
Right.
Brian Cox. I don't think we would have ever gotten that. I think we
But
would have
but
always
I
seen him as
also
sympathetic.
But I also think that that is why everything that we talked about when we talked about the
Hmm.
movie and the differences in the portrayals of it, I think that's why this Hannibal speaks to us differently because
Yeah.
he is the epitome of a morally gray character. We like don't
Yeah.
he
Because you could see knowing someone like
right.
this, like you can see this
And
person.
one thing that I was reading about the morally gray character and the like in the romantasy world and
Hmm.
the fascination with this morally gray character, and one of the reasons that a lot of people don't actually like the morally gray characters in the books that I'm reading right now is because the author, like Sarah Maas, tends to justify. Like you have these characters that do all these really horrible things, and then don't worry, they have a tragic backstory. It's why they do it. She does a lot of justifying the morally gray, which people don't like because then they're like, but are they morally gray or are they just traumatized? And
Right.
and I think with Hannibal, there's an element of it that is absolutely trauma. But there's an element of it that he has come so far past the trauma and doesn't believe that what he's doing is wrong. And even the things that he does that he knows are wrong, he doesn't believe he should be judged for it. And
Right.
that is the epitome of the actual gray morals. And the fact that Brian Fuller relates to that makes me think that there would never have been a judgment day.
And I think that that leads into, like you're saying, why we like him so much, because like that's my dream choice is to write the morally gray character. And obviously other people have done this. They've done it really well. But because it's so much more, it brings so much more humanity into it, because we like to believe, especially watching fictional TV, you're like, they're good, they're bad. That's it. Oh, we like this person. They're good now. They were never bad. They're good now. And it's like, no, they just linger in this spot. And it's like, what if, like, you know, say your brother killed someone? It's like, theoretically, that's wrong, but they were abusing someone. It like brings into these like questions of morally gray that we see in real life that you don't see in a lot of other stuff, because people like, don't want to talk about it.
Right. And like even that, like I know people who have had a family member who committed a crime. And it wasn't a justifiable crime. Like it wasn't like oh well they were being abused, or oh well somebody broke into their house. It was a crime and it wasn't a justifiable crime. And they're angry. But that also doesn't erase the 25 years of them being a good brother. Like, and it's the fact that human beings aren't one thing.
They're so multidimensional, and to that's hard to write in fiction
and to take it, and the thing is to take it to the extreme of murder and cannibalism and the horrible things that we see in these like romance novels where there's war and like abuse. Sure. But that's also actually real life.
Right. Because it's the thing, and like people have been up in arms about it. I mean, you look at they're like, this character was really kind of a terrible character. And it's like, yeah, but they went through a lot. Like, that's how people are. You know someone like that. Like, and sure, maybe you don't know someone that killed someone, but you know someone who has that same demeanor, that has those same dimensions, that like, if they were put in that same situation, that is the way they would have reacted. And you may not want to believe it, but that's what makes these kind of stories so much more.
And it's everything that we were just talking about celebrities and like wanting to put our faith in these people. And then they take everything away. They rip everything away from us. But also like the question of, do you separate the art from the artist? And then there's the question.
And also, did they have a choice of what they were doing? Like,
and how much the more power you get, the more influence you have. How much influence do you have over yourself? And like, there's so many questions like that we can't answer. But then when we create fictional characters, we tend to box them into an answer because it's the escape that we need as humans who don't have the ability to have a black and white. Like Disney princesses make us happy because everything is pretty and perfect. And that will never be our life.
My headphones cut out for a minute for some reason.
But like,
so I didn't hear anything after Disney princesses.
Well, no, Disney princesses, they make us happy, and we like think about their love stories because we will never have anything like that. That will never be our life. But at the same time, is that what you would want? Like, if you actually sat down at the end of the day and were like, do you want to get swept off and go to a castle and never have an opinion or never have a job or never do anything because a man took care of it for you? Do you want that? Maybe. And if you do, fucking good for you. Like that, no judgment in that. But we write fictional characters so one or two dimensional because we can never experience that. But that's why when people write, like, that's why when like women read these books that guys hate and are like romance novels with magic and princes and this crazy shit and fairies and dragons, it's because it's not, we don't care about the fairies and the bat wings. We care about the fact that these characters have never pretended to be good people. Not one character in the books that I'm reading is a good person. And even the ones that are have done terrible things to be good people.
Right. And that's, I mean, it's the same time with like thriller and horror, any of that. Like, it all stems from the same stuff as like, you
Yeah.
have only flawed characters. Even the ones that are good are flawed. I mean, you look at, bring it back to Hannibal, you look at Will, he's the good character. He's killed people.
Yeah.
He's made the wrong decisions. He's supported Hannibal. Like, they're not good people in the sense of black and white on paper.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's why sci-fi and fantasy and horror are such, like, are the kinds of genres where if you like it, you can't casually like it. No one is casually into sci-fi. If you're into sci-fi, you're fucking into sci-fi. It's a personality, but it's because it's so much deeper than that.
Right. Because you can watch a rom-com. I love a rom-com just like anyone else. Yeah. But you watch a rom-com, after that hour and a half, it's over. It doesn't matter.
Right.
You watch like a thriller, like I just watched the Insidious series, or I'm reading the Riley Sager books. Those stick with me. Like, I may not remember the rom-com book I read 2 months ago, but I will never forget Lock Every Door by Riley Sager that I read 7 years ago. Like, it has changed me as a person. It has changed the way I write books. Like, it is, there's so much deeper, like you're saying.
Right. Well, and even that, like, in the Game of Thrones series, there is a character. You have not read the books, right?
I've read the first third of the first week.
Okay. Well, okay. This is going to be a little spoilery, but I mean, have you watched the show? Ugh, Jesus Christ, Courtney. Okay. There is a character in the show that dies. And, well, that's everyone. But no, sure. There's a character in the show that dies, and then that's the end of her story. Dead, over, never comes back in the show. In the books, she comes back because of some fucked up magic. And the shit that happens after she dies, when she comes back, changes everything you thought about this character. Because the character is one of the most one-dimensional characters in the series. Except that she's not. Like, and the TV show took out that entire arc. And she's most people's least favorite character on the show, I think. But it's because if you haven't read the book, you don't have any understanding of the depth of that character.
Yeah.
And and those books are fucking dense and heavy, and some of it, parts of it are terrible. But I remember every single scene that character was in.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, that's the power of these type of things. And this is why we have a sci-fi and horror podcast and not a rom-com, a musical podcast.
Right. Despite the fact that we could talk about them forever, it would not affect our lives.
Right. No, they are absolutely wonderful and a great escape. And I will read 7 rom-com books in a week and have so much joy, but it's not the same impact in it. It doesn't have the same humanity because you never believe anything that happens in them, and you can't compare it to the day-to-day, which you can with these type of things.
Yeah.
So to bring it back, now that we have given you the wildest Thanksgiving episode / my birthday episode.
Happy Thanksgiving!
These
are all the things we're thankful for.
All the things we're thankful for. Do you have any other like upcoming predictions or feelings about this episode? I mean, this episode was weird, but better than last week.
It was. I kind of like this Italian police chief because I think he's kind of the new Jack. Too.
He is, and you think so? Jack and Bloom are like dead.
I think Jack and Alana. I think Jack, Alana, and Abigail all did not make it out of there.
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, obviously we know Abigail didn't.
Yeah, Abigail didn't.
I think you're right. I think Jack and.
I think Abigail didn't. I think Jack for sure didn't. I think Bloom is the most likely to have made it out, except for that.
We would have seen her though.
Well, yeah, but when Will got to the house, she was real fucking close to dead.
Yeah.
But of the three, she is my most likely suspect to not actually be dead. But I don't think Jack or Abigail made it out.
I think Jack is my least likely suspect to be dead because I could see them sending him off with Bella, like saving him, sending him off with Bella because we didn't get an ending for Bella.
Yeah, I think
I could see them not killing him, but not bringing him back.
See, I think that phone call as he was dying in the room to say goodbye to her. I think that was the closure, the sign of he's not coming back.
I really do think they're all dead. If I had to pick one of the three, I think he's the most likely for me to have.
Okay, and for me, it's Alana just because of the actual physics of their deaths.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. Wow, I don't know what next episode's gonna look like. I think Will and Hannibal will finally
Come
come face
back.
to face again.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I don't know. I think that's all of my spoilers now that I've had.
Yeah,
Other than,
I think I'm now officially back to spoiler free. Everything that I accidentally
yeah.
learned. Well, except for that I know that Hannibal and Will, I've seen the picture of them walking down a street together, but okay.
I mean, obviously though, like,
Obviously, yeah.
is that really a spoiler?
That's not
Like
really
you
a
knew that
spoiler.
was coming.
We now that I know that
Yeah.
Will's alive and in Italy,
Right.
then there's okay, that might be every single
That
episode
is
of the rest of the
literally the
season.
next thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's pretty good. I don't have any trivia or goofs or anything. There's nothing
Well, and
on
the
IMDb
only
for you.
trivias I had were the St. Ambrose and the Italian, and
Mhm.
so
Yeah. Yeah, the Italian, I told you I didn't know it was in the goofs. That's why I knew about it. I was like, I heard that. Yeah, that was
yeah.
there.
Well, I
Um,
didn't find it on the Goofs. I found it on Reddit, but
yeah. Okay, so on that note, who do you want to punch in the face?
um, probably will.
It's fair.
Um, I mean, I get it. Like, we just went on this whole rant about moral grayness and how I understand everything that he's feeling and why he's feeling that way, and I'm with him on the guilt and whatever. But also, like, you were free. You were done. It was someone else's problem. Why did you go to Italy?
Yeah, that's fair.
Like,
Um, yeah, this is a cop out. I'm gonna say it before I say it. I'm going with fake Abigail. I understand that that is a figment of Will's mind. I get it.
so
But
basically, you also want to punch Will, but I punched Will, and so you're picking the Will's
but only
imagination.
only that specific part of Will, not all of Will.
Cool.
Just a figment of his imagination. So who's your MVP?
My MVP is, I guess, the Italian police chief, because who else was in this
Yeah,
episode?
no question. That would be the number one, yeah. Um, I would have picked him as well. So I'm gonna go with I didn't think that through. There was like three characters this
Yeah,
episode.
no, there was no one in this episode to pick.
I'm gonna go with regular Will then,
Oh,
who
cool.
is helping the chief in a sense, not deranged Will that is
Cool.
being contradictory.
Right. So, you know.
But yeah, that's again, it is what it is. It's a cop out. I don't care.
I just feel like that's like picking between who do you want to save, Edward Norton or Brad Pitt in Fight Club?
Sure. I haven't watched Fight Club. But sure. I know. Look,
Do you at least know what that means?
no, I own the book. I was gonna read the book. I really hate Chuck Palahniuk. I want to
No,
like
here's the
him.
thing. I don't like Chuck Palahniuk. I don't like the movie Fight Club, but like that
That's
twist.
one of my spoiler frees. The Fight Club spoiler free, Sopranos are spoiler free.
Okay,
Those are my
but
two big ones
the
that no one has broken for
The
me.
Fight Club twist is like the most famous movie twist after
Other
The
than
Sixth
Sixth
Sense.
Sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
other than Sixth Sense, the
I
most.
know, and I've kept it spoiler.
Okay, your homework is to watch Game of Thrones and Fight Club.
Ugh, I gotta watch. Game of Thrones is really long. Oh my God, I gotta buy a mic. My homework is to buy a mic.
Because this mic is really struggling.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, Fight Club's on my list. It's a really short book. It's like less than 100 pages or right at 100 pages. All of Chuck Palahniuk's books are really short. But let's get an apartment and buy a mic, and then we'll revisit this. Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, if you have any thoughts, feelings, etc., no spoilers about Fight Club, you can email us deathandaliens@gmail.com. You can find us on all of the social media at Death and Aliens. You can find me at CECloud13.
And you can find me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
And happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.